Welcome back into Talking Points. A major development in the Israel-Hamas war. The man held responsible for the Hamas-led October 7th attack was killed last week. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called for the death of Yahya Sinwar, quote, the beginning of the day after Hamas, and indicated Hamas will no longer rule Gaza, end quote. The Israeli military pounded Lebanon and Gaza with airstrikes yesterday. Israel says it's aimed to take down Hezbollah's financial network.
And one of the states where the conflict in the Middle East has had a particular focus is in Michigan, which has a large population of Arab American voters. It also has a large share of union members who voted for Democrats in the past, but then flipped red for Trump in 2016. The Michigan margin is now the closest of any swing state in the country. According to an average of the polls, it's down to just 1/10 of a point. That's why it's our Talking Points toss-up state this week. And let's bring in our Alex Burstein to break it all down. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Luke. Yeah, super close margins right now. Michigan likely to be decided by four major groups. That's union workers, voters in Detroit, the suburbs, and the consequential Arab American vote. Those NBC polling averages you mentioned show that of the 7 swing states, Michigan is by far the closest. So, as you can expect, there's been a lot of campaigning in Michigan. Both candidates traveled the state on Friday going after that blue-collar vote. Michigan's long been America's leader in auto production, and Harris, in front of a Lansing crowd on Friday, argued Trump doesn't have the workers' best interests in mind.
He thinks that the value of your work is essentially meaningless. That's what he's saying, to compare it to child's work. When we hear no, the work you do is complex.
Trump also went after the vote of auto workers in Detroit on Friday. He continued his pitch for increased tariffs on auto production outside of the U.S.
And for those who don't make their product in America, they will be forced to pay tariffs, and we will take in hundreds of billions of dollars toward our budget. We'll pay down our debt. We'll reduce your taxes still further.
Some Michigan voters have been hesitant with the Biden administration's response to the Israel-Hamas war, and Trump is honing in on that. Trump visited Hamtramck, a Detroit suburb, and got an endorsement from their Yemen-born mayor, Amer Galeb. Those suburbs are likely going to help decide this race. Historically, Democrats have dominated in the urban areas, while Republicans take care of business rurally, leading to the suburbs. And that's the area to look at for over these next 15 days. But for now, guys, back to you.
AB, thank you. Let's turn now to the Michigan Senate race. It's reached over $90 million in ad money and is expected to be one of the most important Senate races in the cycle.
Yeah, Talking Points analyst Harrison Calder has the details for us on what that race could look like and what it may look like if Mike Rogers, the Republican, is able to flip the seat. Good evening, Harrison.
Luke, good evening. The Michigan Senate race has a lot on the line as both candidates will look to replace Debbie Stabenow, who did not want to run for a 5th term. Candidate Mike Rogers is looking to take control in Michigan and become the first Republican senator in the state since 2001. Like many other Republicans in the past, he was skeptical of former President Trump when Rogers made statements like how Trump was fundamentally wrong on specific issues. Since then, though, Rogers has been a heavy supporter of the former president, even speaking at one of his recent rallies. Here, Rogers pointed out the support Trump is getting from within Teamsters.
I'll tell you, those Teamsters right there, mister, they have more common sense amongst those Teamsters right there than in every committee room in Washington, D.C. And I look forward to working with you to make America great again, Mr. President.
Rogers is focusing his campaign heavily on the economy, saying he will make gas prices and groceries affordable. His opponent is Elissa Slotkin, who is currently a U.S. representative. Slotkin was selected as the Democratic candidate with a lot on the line, as this is expected to be one of the most contested Senate races this election. Slotkin spoke at a Vice President Harris rally in Detroit, where she made it clear what American values were in her eyes.
And there's nothing more American like American apple pie than joining a union.
Voting demographics are going to have a major role in this election, and just as Alex informed you with Trump and Harris, the Arab vote could make or break this Senate race. Here are some polls from within the last week. RMG research here gives Elissa Slotkin a 4-point lead. This other poll here from Atlas Intel shows both candidates just about even, 48 to 48%. And now these polls show a relatively tight race, and there's going to be a lot on the line. These numbers could be shifted very easily by the Arab population, who accompany 4% of Michigan as a whole. The two candidates who work both in national security know how important winning the race is. Both could potentially get the support they want in Michigan, as well as determining who gets the Senate overall.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch how that works. And Alex, we've seen both the Senate and the presidential candidates visiting off, and Donald Trump was in Detroit last week and actually had some negative things to say about Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, Wayne County is going to be huge, but you can take a listen. Trump wasn't the nicest to Detroit a couple weeks ago.
The whole country is going to be like, you want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president.
And this is Wayne County, a Democratic stronghold, but it's been an interesting county the past couple of years. You go back to 2008, Obama won it by 50%. But if you go back to 2020, there was a 38% margin. So there is some improvements for the Republicans. Statements like that not going to help out Trump.
No. Yeah, probably not going to help out. I mean, I don't think you ever want to go to the place where you're campaigning and diss the place, but Trump has his own strategies and they've worked for him before. But let's talk a little bit more about the Senate race. We can see that Slotkin's doing decently well in the polls, maybe even a little bit better than Vice President Harris. Is that a warning to Vice President Harris?
It could be, and that's what she spoke about in the past. She said how Harris is potentially underwater here in this case. We saw that on Axios. And it's about how President Harris is going to be able to overcome this. She kind of needs to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and of course in this case Michigan. Those are very important states for her. And one thing to note is going to be Jill Stein. We saw Jill Stein get in the way of things before. She took votes from Hillary Clinton back in 2016. And there's a poll from the American Islamic Relations Advocacy Group that says that 40% of Michigan voters that are of Arab descent are 40% backing Jill Stein at the moment, which is a big number.
Feels like 2016 all over again. We all need to go play some Pokemon Go, right?
Yeah, I would love to.